Here we go. So you're probably wondering, leaf springs or four link? Which one's the better option for you? Let's dive into it. Right here, I've got a 1969 Jeepster Commando. It has leaf springs all the way around. And to my right, I have my 1972 Jeep Commando. I have a 3-link up front. If you haven't, I'll leave a link to the video if you want to watch that. Let's dive into a few of the pros and cons of leaf springs, 4-link design, and which one ultimately I'm going to choose when it comes to this Crusty Commando. Recently, I took the 1972 Crusty Commando here out on its inaugural test run, and this thing rips. I mean, it totally did amazing out on the trails, right up until the moment that it did not do so great. Basically, I tackled a hill that I probably shouldn't have been messing on with open differentials, being a little bit tired. The leaf springs were worn out in the rear, and ultimately what happened is I found a lot of traction after having very little traction on a big bump. That created some axle wrap, which is where those springs twist into an S shape. The yoke rotates up, and ultimately it got completely destroyed. And that leaves me with my dilemma, and the ultimate reason on right now, I need to decide on whether or not I'm going to keep leaf springs in the back of this Crusty Commando or switch to a 4-link suspension. Leaf springs, they've been around since forever. Horse-drawn buggies, ancient Egypt, something like that. Ultimately, a stack of thin strips of steel that keep the suspension supported on lots of different applications. They've been on anything from Toyotas, old Jeeps, still on modern pickup trucks. They are all over the place. If you look, there's a leaf spring. And ultimately, they work. So why change to something else? Because ultimately, 4-link exists. A 4-link suspension that's going to be control arms, coilovers, coil springs, shocks, and they're going to allow us a lot more fine-tuning, a lot more adjustability on exactly how we want the suspension on this Jeep to operate. Now, that doesn't mean they're an all-out clear winner in all situations. Let's talk about the pros and cons and see which one's ultimately the better application for you. For round one, we're gonna talk about cost. So when it comes to cost, there's a lot of variables that go into this, but we're gonna stick, well, not really in any one particular area with it. Leaf springs, you could go to a junkyard, pick up a set for pretty cheap, but ultimately you're probably gonna end up needing some new bushings, replace them. They're gonna take some work to get working. They're also potentially have a lot of miles on them. They're already pretty worn out. That was really what happened with Crusty, is those things had a couple 100,000 miles on them, really worn out leaf springs. And so new ones would have been the way to go, but I was trying to be cheap. So for this purpose, we're gonna talk about cost, even just brand new. So brand new, you can get a good set of brand new leaf springs, a couple $100, probably $300, you'll be ready to go. And that can vary all the way up to a complete custom set of leaf springs, you know, and that might be $700, $800 for a custom set from like an Alcan or a Deaver. And then to link the suspension, you know, if it's on leaf springs, that means you're gonna have to buy all the bracketry, all the custom joints, the links, the coils, the coilovers, the shocks, whatever that might be. And so you're probably looking at $1,000 plus to get it into a linked design. So in this round, we're gonna go with cost 1 for leaf springs, 0 for link design. So for performance, this is really where I think the 4-link's gonna start to shine. It allows typically for a lot more suspension travel. You can get some really crazy suspension travel numbers out of it. But also, like I said, it's very tunable. We're gonna be able to decide what kind of anti-squat, anti-dive numbers we want, what we're really gonna want this suspension to perform and feel like off-road. It's usually gonna ride quite a bit smoother than a leaf spring suspension. Now, that's not to say you can't tune one in. I just think you have a lot more opportunity to fix that. In the rear of a vehicle with leaf springs, as I've just recently experienced with the Crusty Commando, axle wrap. The only way to really correct axle wrap is if you're going to go ahead and add an axle wrap bar. So now we're further probably limiting travel, but we are eliminating one problem. But then when you consider that, you're adding links, you're adding joints, and at that point, is it really much more work to go ahead and link the rear of the suspension? I'm not sure. I think in this scenario, hands down, you can't really argue that the performance of a properly set up, properly tuned 4-link is going to outperform leaf springs every day of the week. Round 3, here we go. Installation. Now when it comes to installation, I would say if it already has leaf springs, then it's gonna be way easier to install a new set of leaf springs. If you don't know how to do it, you're gonna have to call that old timer down the street.
Well, I think you're an overeducated 27-year-old version.
Or watch a bunch of random YouTube videos, learn how to weld, do some custom fabrication. So the investment to a link suspension over a leaf spring is a lot higher when it comes to installation. Is that a win? Is that a loss? I'm not really sure, depending on what your ultimate goal is, but it's definitely going to be easier to install leaf springs if leaf springs are already there. So in this case, we're going to say installation, leaf springs win. For round 4, durability. Now this one's probably going to be a little bit controversial, I would say. When you're thinking about durability, leaf springs are brutally durable, it would seem. I mean, they're literally just a strip of steel, some bushings, and they're good to go. Now, link suspension, a lot more moving parts, a lot more possibly to break, but also a lot more tunable, and I would say that can help with durability as well, because while the leaf springs might get really worn out with lots of axle wrap or lots of just beating them up in general, they, I think, still have the potential to wear out just as bad as a 4-link suspension design would, if not worse, even though there's more moving parts in a link suspension. So for durability, I would say ultimately, I'm gonna throw this one up as a tie. I'm not really sure that you can say there's a clear winner on durability for leaf springs versus a link suspension, but leave some comments below if you really think that one of them is far more durable than the others. I think they kind of both have their pros and cons when it comes to durability. For the last portion of this comparison, we're going to talk about axle wrap, and I think ultimately, you can't have an off-road discussion without this part of the equation. Now, I would say with this one, there is a clear winner. Leaf springs are gonna axle wrap. A 4-link suspension is not gonna axle wrap, especially if you have it set up. Now, you could offset those things with an anti-wrap bar for the leaf springs, but ultimately, I'm sorry guys, the leaf springs are gonna wrap. It's a lot of work to go ahead and still add that anti-wrap bar, get those leaf springs set up properly. And so ultimately, I'm gonna say the clear winner when it comes to axle wrap is going to be the 4-link design. That puts us at a 3 for leaf springs, 3 for a 4-link, and to me, that sounds like a tie. So what am I going to be doing to fix the Crusty Commando, since apparently I'm not very good at creating a comparison on what I should do? Let's dive into a few of the comments you guys left me online and talk about some of the pros and cons that I haven't talked about already in this video, and ultimately what I'm going to be doing for the rear suspension of my Crusty Commando. Ultimately, I did put out a poll on both YouTube and my Instagram to see what you guys thought I should do on the Crusty Commando. Leave it leaf sprung or 4-link rear suspension. And ultimately, I'll say I was pretty surprised. I thought it would be kind of a landslide one way or the other, and it was really close. It was actually 60%, let's see, 60% chose 4-link with only 40% saying I should replace the leaf springs and leave them the way they are. There was also some really great responses. I did ask you guys for some feedback on that, and I really appreciate some of the thoughts and input that you guys had with it, because I think it's always interesting to see how people choose ultimately to customize their vehicle, what they want to do, all of those different things. And so, you know, some of the comments I got, y'all already have it set up, great, get the right leaf springs, you'll be happy with it. You know, and again, it is already set up on leaf springs. I do think it would be easy. I have done a lot of work to get that set up, but ultimately that was when I thought I wasn't going to keep this Jeep, and also I really was just going to not spend any money on it at all. And now I'm really enjoying it. I'm really liking it, and I think it's worth me spending a little bit of money to get the perfect product for what I want. And somebody said eliminate the problem altogether, 4-link it. I already talked about all those pros and cons of it. By the time you get anti-wrap bars in, etc., you might as well go 4-link. And I do agree a lot with this comment. I think you almost have the same number of bars, the same number of welding. The fitment can actually be a little bit trickier, I think, to get an anti-wrap bar in the narrow frames of these Commandos. And so again, linking it's going to be tricky because there's not a lot of room. But I think the anti-wrap bar creates its own set of problems too. So, you know, again, I think that's a great point, that if you're already gonna be adding some type of bars and linkages and all those different things anyway, why not just go ahead and 4-link it? Then there was a $$. Yeah, I think we know that that one means obviously it's just gonna be expensive, and Jeeps are holes that you sink money into. And then leaf springs provide better road manners and improved towing capabilities. This one, I really would like some feedback from you guys. If you're actually still paying attention to the video, leave some comments below, because for me, I've seen some different things. Even my dad's Jeepster that hopefully we'll get some videos on here in the near future. When he set it up, he had a lot of his builders recommend the same thing. So he actually has a 3-link up front, leaf springs in the back for that exact reason, because he wants to tow a little bit of a teardrop trailer, some of those things, drive better. But ultimately for me, I'm thinking as far as road manners go, I don't know why a link suspension wouldn't drive even better on the road. And then even towing, the addition of airbags with a link suspension would seem far easier than leaf springs. Well, maybe not, maybe about the same, but I'm really puzzled on this one. So guys, leave some comments below. Again, it said leaf springs provide better road manners and improved towing capabilities. And again, to me, I mean, even my Ram 1500, it's a 2016. It's got a linked suspension in the rear with coil springs and it tows great. So I'm not quite sure I agree with that statement, but what do you guys think? All right, guys, here we go. It's time to bring this thing home. I've talked about what I think, and we've got the Crusty Commando behind me. I've got some notes here on cost of different things, and I'm really trying to put some good numbers together on what I would decide to do in the back of this with the financial piece accounted as well. So ultimately I had 2 choices. One, replace the Jeep Cherokee leaf springs with a new set of leaf springs, or 4-link the back of it. Option 1 with the leaf springs. That ultimately would be the easy button. I've made all the brackets, everything's in place. Ultimately, it's ready to go for leaf springs. I can unbolt, it's probably 10 bolts. Actually, I know it is. It's 10 bolts, 2 U-bolts on each side of the leaf spring, a bolt on the front, a bolt on the back for the shackle, and the leaf springs are out. I know I can do this entire swap in a matter of an hour, more than likely. But there is a cost associated with ordering new leaf springs. As I looked into it, basically my options were I can order a set of heavy capacity, heavy duty leaf springs from General Spring is where I found it on the website. It was $330 with bushings for a set of springs. So $330 is where I would be at for a new set of springs. But if I did want them a little bit more tuned specifically for my application, I could go to a Deaver or an Alcan, and talking to a few different people, they were saying that could be anywhere from $800 to $1,000 for a pair of springs. And really, to me, that feels like I'm starting to get into the 4-link territory when it comes to cost. And so I'm not really sure that's the way I want to go. Now, the rear axle's also broken, and so that's something that's going to have to get replaced. And I did find a solution for that. I won't leave any suspense. I thought about it, but really there's no reason. I do have a Dana 44 rear axle for it now with an ARB locker, chromoly shafts, 488 gears, so everything's ready to go for it. And so ultimately, I just have to decide how to outfit that axle with either leaf springs or coil spring suspension. You know, those were kind of the other pieces. And then also when it came to cost for the leaf springs is I don't want axle wrap again, because I am going to wheel this thing. I do want it to be reliable, and I need to solve that problem. And so if I'm going to reinstall the leaf springs, I know Deaver and Alcan have some anti-wrap solutions that can help aid with eliminating that, but that also might increase leaf spring rate. The travel might not be quite as good as I could get out of a 4-link. And then ultimately I'd probably still end up wanting to install an anti-wrap bar. And basically the kits I could find on that were anywhere from $300 to $500. So we're talking, if I bought just General Spring and an anti-wrap bar, $330 plus a $300 minimum. So we're probably talking $650 just to go ahead and get this thing put back on leaf springs and fixed correctly. So yeah, there we go. Leaf springs are cheap, they're simple, but in my case, it's not a total bolt-on fix. And so since it isn't a total bolt-on fix, I'm not really sure that's the way I'm gonna go. So option 2, that would be a 4-link. What I would consider probably the full send option. Now, 4-link, the price varies greatly on it as well. I mean, if you're just being honest, whether you do coilovers or not, coil springs in a shock or not, how you source the parts, all of those things really start to add up. But ultimately, when I was looking at different kits, it was going to be anywhere from $600 to $1,000 for all of the joints, all of the bracketry, everything you needed for a custom setup like I'm going to need in this one. Then when you're talking about the coil springs, the support, the coilovers, whatever that might be, again, if you're just doing a coil spring with a shock, that's not going to be quite as tunable, but that price, might be anywhere from $300 to about $1,200, $1,500 if you wanted a coilover setup. So the price, again, varies quite greatly on the cost of the kit and then the cost of the actual suspension to hold it up. Those are all the points, all the comments, all the pros and cons that I've come up with. Ultimately, what did I choose? Ta-da! I'm sure you're all really surprised because I've probably kind of hinted at it already, but this thing's gonna get a 4-link in the rear.
That's what she said. Or he said.
If you weren't surprised already, I think it's going to be really great. I think it's going to solve all of these problems. I'm no longer going to have to worry about axle wrap. I just think I'm going to be really happy with it. I was super stoked with the way the 3-link's been handling. I have some confidence after setting that up that I think the 4-link's just going to blow the performance of this thing away. I'm going to keep it super low slung. I'm hoping to get every bit of 10 to 14 inches of travel depending on how I can configure some shocks, some different things. And I think it's going to be great. I'm so excited to have that adjustability. I'm working on the 4-link calculator right now, trying to get my anti-squat exactly where I want it, some of the numbers where I want it. Also going to be adding some adjustability in there. So, you know, I should have a lot of tunability with the suspension. And I think ultimately the wife, the kiddos, myself are just gonna love driving it, love taking it out, down the highway, road tripping it, off-roading it, all of the things. So, let's dive in on why I actually chose this because again, I still am budget minded. I do not have that much money to spend on this. My wife's running joke with it is it's net zero. And honestly, I'm really close with that. I haven't actually spent any of our personal money on this. It's all been trading, wheeling, dealing, all of the things like that to keep me at almost next to no money on this build. And I've been really proud about that fact. And with that, that means you have to be a little bit creative and also I've mildly created a Facebook addiction problem. Let's dive in on the parts I've already had stashed for a while, what I'm thinking, and the ultimate breakdown of why the 4-link made way more financial sense than actually swapping the leaf springs out. I'm keeping my paper up just because it's way easier for me to keep track of everything. So for parts, when it came down to parts, I actually found a set of aluminum lower links, which I am super excited about. That's probably a little bit excessive, but I spent 275 bucks on the links and they came with joints. To me, that was a pretty killer deal. I had another friend of mine hook me up with the remaining joints for another 75 bucks. I have a bunch of tubing left over from roll cages I built, other upper links, just, you know, scrap pieces. So the upper links will be made out of the 1 3/4 120 wall DOM I've had laying around from the roll cages anyway. I actually scored, this one's really fun. I mean, as far as like finding deals goes. So I was actually able to score a set of Metal Cloak dual rate springs for the front and the rear of a TJ for a 30 pack of beer. And that actually came with 6 sets of shocks, a bunch of other stuff. The guy was just cleaning out his garage. I got super lucky. He was like the first guy to message him. Met him, gave him a 30 pack of beer, got all this stuff. So I have the coil springs that I'm gonna be running in the rear for 30 bucks. Also, when I ordered all the 3-link brackets for this, I ordered some extras because I wasn't exactly sure what I was gonna want or gonna need. So I did have some leftovers from that. I'm not sure the cost on those, but we'll just say it's another 100 bucks. And then basically all I have left are a couple more brackets, some specialty joints and things to order. I did actually just finish ordering these and I spent $225 on all the remaining bracketry and everything else I needed. And that was even to add some like front recovery points that I ordered and some other stuff that aren't even related to the suspension. But we'll just say another $225. So total cost with the parts I've got, the parts I ordered, it puts me right at about 750 bucks. But again, most of that had already been ordered. So I was only out about a $250 order to get everything I needed to go ahead and link the rear of this. And to me, that was cheaper than anything else I could find. Now, it is a larger time investment, but I do enjoy this stuff. And to get a better product for a cheaper price, I think that's pretty straightforward. Only out of pocket 250 bucks because everything else was already sunk costs or things I've already spent money on. That's right at the same cost as a new set of springs. So ultimately, better product. I'm gonna be happy with it for the same amount of cost. The one major downside to linking the rear of this is just gonna be the time commitment, but I do enjoy it. I'm really excited to have a better product and I'm just learning a little bit more when it comes to fabrication, all of those things. So stick around if you guys are curious to see what the 4-link looks like, subscribe, do all those things. At the end of the day, guys, I'm not sure there is a right or a wrong answer in this debate. Leaf springs, linked suspension, they both work great. They both get you out on the trail. You get to have a great time. I mean, in this yellow one, it's done the Rubicon, it's done Moab, it's done all kinds of just pretty gnarly trails for a Jeep on 35s and leaf springs. This one, it's gonna have some great adventures ahead of it as well, but these leaf springs have not steered me wrong at all. And I think it's a really hard decision to make on, do you keep it classic? Do you update it? What's your budget? What's your skill set? well can you fabricate. All those things really factor into what you have to do. When I built this one, my skill set was a lot smaller. I couldn't do as much, keeping things as simple as possible with stock leaf springs, or I did modify them eventually, but keeping things as stock as easy as possible was a big part of this. That's why I still got the Buick 231, it's fuel injected, all those things, because my fabrication skills were not where it was at when I built this one. And so I know those things factor in. Do you guys think I make the right decision on four-linking the rear, or should I have left it with leaf springs? Let me know what you guys think. Please like, subscribe. If you're interested in buying a yellow 1969 Jeep Commando, this one's currently for sale at the posting of this video, and I'm hoping it won't be for sale forever. So hit me up. Please like, subscribe. If there's anything I missed, well, let me know that too. Till next time, guys. Thanks for watching.
Money worm.